Oh, well, we don't want that. There we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Rickcast. I am Rick, and I hope everybody's having a wonderful March 20th. That would be a Thursday, 2025. We have stories to tell tonight. It seemed like it was kind of a slow news day out there, but do not worry, ladies and gentlemen. I have many things to talk about, and I want you to be a part of that conversation by jumping in the comment section, either on YouTube, on Rumble, on X, on Facebook, if there is anybody out there on Facebook. We still haven't heard from our one lone holdout on Twitch. I'm sure he'll step in eventually, but it is good to see everybody this evening. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell to keep this show growing. And without further ado, let's get in. I got two hot takes for you, both in video form, because I know that's how people like it nowadays. And then we will jump into our first story of the night, which is going to be Conor McGregor is running for president of Ireland. We talked about why he would be, but I'm going to reinforce that again as to why he would want to run for the president of Ireland. I don't want to say governor of Ireland, but president of Ireland, whatever. Their politics are weird. But he's running for a leadership position over there. Then we're going to talk about Trump shutting down the Department of Education, what that means. The military erased Jackie Robinson's military history. No, his sports history. No, wait. Yeah, his military history, because he was pretty much. Anyway, as part of the DEI requirement, the military erased his time served. There's this sports commentator on ESPN called Mina Kimes. She had a conniption fit. These two things are not related. They eventually put it back up. But Mina Kimes is actually getting quite blowback for just not staying in sports. But I'll explain all that as we get to that point. And we have white girl problems. Yep. You and I have talked about white girl problems, and we've talked about the female dynamic being destroyed by college, and I have statistics that back that up. Because out of all the major groups, college educated women, which you and I would mostly say would be liberal white women, is the farthest removed from supporting Donald Trump. And we see it on a daily basis on TikTok. We see it on a daily basis on social media. College educated women just throwing hissy fits, yelling at walls, throwing things, and just completely mind warped. And we'll talk about that. And then finally, it wouldn't be a week in the Rickcast universe without talking about Blake Lively. And we're going to talk about it. So let's get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. First up, we talked about Bill Burr yesterday. And how he is funny, but not in this liberal era that he is in, as he is trying to, establish himself as some kind of liberal, what's the word they use? Ally. Liberal ally. That's what he's trying to establish himself as. And so it's not really working. But this is the same Bill Burr that blamed white women, or said that white women took over Black Lives Matter. And it was one of his funniest bits because it was true. So, of course, the natural next step in his evolution would be to sit down with the clucking hens of The View.
If you watch CNN, Fox, you go online. I don't know, it's a weird time, but I just feel like someone needs to bring the boiling water down to a simmer, and everybody on both sides. Like if you watch CNN, Fox.
Now, before we get too far into this, remember, Bill Burr has on repeated occasions called to free Luigi Mangione, which we know is accused of an attempted crime in the form of murder and taking the life of the CEO of Blue Cross, I believe it is, or United Healthcare, one of the major healthcare companies. And he said on multiple occasions, free Luigi, free Luigi, free Luigi. So now he wants to talk about taking the temperature down. Classic liberal doublespeak.
You go online, or you listen to politicians. It's all and then you walk out on the street and someone's like, hey, how you doing? You're like, good. So I don't think they're living in like a reality.
But is there anybody?
Which is ironic that he's on this show talking about that.
online or you listen to politicians, it's all, and then you walk out on the street and someone's like, hey, how you doing? You're like, good. So I don't think they're living in like a reality.
But is there anybody getting your ire up these days more?
The collective IQ in this video has got to be around 60. And I'm sorry, and I think Bill Burr is pulling most of the intellectual weight here, but even that's not doing much.
Than usual.
Nerds.
Yeah.
The nerds that own the politician, all these tech nerds that want to build robots because they don't know how to talk to hot women.
Yeah.
They're gonna.
Now, say whatever you will, Mark Zuckerberg's been married to his wife since college. Elon Musk has got 14 kids, some of them the natural way, some of them not. And he's dated many different girls. Who's the other one? Oh, yeah, I just said Elon Musk. Bezos dumped his first wife, and now he's married to some bimbo over there. So it's not like it feels like Bill Burr's Arrested Development was somewhere in high school, which is why he's like, it's the nerds that don't know how to talk to girls anymore. It's like, dude, you sleep on the couch because your wife doesn't like you.
Take over the world. They're going to take over. They are literally going to replace us. We're like beta right now, and they're coming out with like the VCR. And I think Elon has got the rockets going because they realize there's other Earths out there, and they're gonna trash this one, and because they don't have any concern for it, and they're going to move on to the next Earth. And everybody's gonna be standing down here with you in red ties, going, "Wait a minute, I was on your side," and they're just going to leave.
But you were talking about death in your set. Do they not realize that they're going to die, these people? They don't realize that eventually everybody dies.
I always wondered that about all religions, where they always talk about a wrathful God and, will send you to hell. And it's like, none of you guys are operating like you fear this, the way you run your religion.
That's right.
So I don't understand any of that. I'm just trying to be like.
I'm just playing this just to follow up on yesterday's show, and B, how pathetic is it if you're Bill Burr, right? People believed, rightfully so, that Bill Burr was a funny guy because he was. And now you've stooped to the level of cackling it up with the hens of the View. And it's just uncomfortable. And, on some levels, I feel bad for Bill Burr, but on most levels, I don't. But so that was our first hot take, just the continued decline of one Bill Burr, and not looking great for you, buddy. Not that I really care, but good for you. Second hot take is from yesterday's show as well. Timmy Waltz. Remember when he ran around and said, "Oh, when I need a good, when I need a boost of energy, I look at Tesla's stock and it's dropping," and everybody was cheering about that. Well, all you had to do was bring on Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary. And, that didn't work out too well. Poor Tim Waltz, I kind of feel bad for him because he's just kind of an idiot. Because no matter what he does, somebody's around the corner to, bop him over the head with reality.
Criminal. I don't think we have to talk about it in any other context. And all those cars have cameras in them, and those dealerships have cameras. You're beyond being stupid when you do that. You're going to go to jail, and you now have a government that just got their mandate. They can't wait to find idiots that do this. You're going to spend 5 to 20 years in prison. If they get them on terrorism, which I think is a stretch, they will have no parole, no shortened sentence. They'll rot in hell in prison for 20 years. And frankly, as far as I'm concerned, that's okay. Breaking in, shooting a car, setting on fire, nothing to do with the politics, nothing to do with Tesla. You are a criminal. And you should go
what about the broader
to
question
jail.
about the protest factor? I mean, you heard
What protest?
I do love how CNN. We're going to get to the Waltz thing in a second, but it is always crazy that. What about protesting?
You're a criminal.
I'm talking about Tim Waltz and his comments about the Tesla stock. He says it gives him a boost to see that stock going down.
That poor guy didn't check his portfolio and his own pension plan for state. It's beyond stupid what he did. He's talking down a 3.5% weighting in his own pension plan. I mean, what's the matter with that guy? He doesn't check the well-being of his own constituents in his state. I mean, that's their investment fund. Point, what a bozo.
The minute
I think
poor Tim Waltz, in a sense, Because he's just kind of a stupid idiot. He's talking about because he's trying to get on the good thing. Oh, everybody doesn't like Tesla. Well, I don't like Tesla either. And I like it when their stock goes down. And then the people of the state are going, that's the retirement fund you put us in, like teachers and so forth, which of course I'm sure they don't really like that either now. But hey, it was fine when it's a year ago at this time. It was okay because Elon Musk was a quote unquote good guy. Now he's a bad guy. And so it's all about hating on Tesla. But poor Timmy can't even catch a break there. Not that I feel bad for him, but from afar, you just kind of have to step back and go, oh, Tim, that's just bad. All right, this is Rick Cast. I am Rick. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. Let's get to our first story of the night. Talking about Conor McGregor. Oh, Conor. Here we go. So, Conor McGregor announces he will run for president of Ireland after meeting with Donald Trump as he poses in front of a private jet wearing a Make Ireland Great Again hat. Conor McGregor has announced that his bid to become Ireland's president just days after meeting with Donald Trump, the MMA fighter, who was found to have raped a woman in a civil case in November in Dublin, announced his plans with an Instagram post which sees him standing in front of a private jet wearing a Make Ireland Great Again cap. The post comes just days after McConnor spoke of a legal immigration racket ravaging our country at the White House. We covered that on St. Patrick's Day on Monday. On Instagram, McGregor wrote, Ireland must fully implement the EU Migration Pact by July 12th, 2026. So between now and 12th of June 2026, several pieces of legislation. The next presidential election must take place by 11 November 2025. Who else will stand up to the government and oppose it? And so he's running on immigration. Essentially, that's what he's doing. He's pulling a Donald Trump, and he is Irish, and he does care about his people. Of course, everybody has to bring up the grape accusation and so forth. Not a great look, obviously. Nobody condemns that type of behavior. It's not a great thing at all. And for rapists, there are certain punishments that should be implemented. But be that as it may, he's also one of the few Irish citizens and Irish public figures to actually speak out about what is going on in the country of Ireland. And you can't even find it unless you go to the Times of India. And this is from February of last year. Ireland faces unprecedented civil unrest as anti-immigration sentiment boils over. Ireland is experiencing, this was last year around this time, unprecedented civil unrest due to the anti-migrant sentiment following a 300% surge, get out of here, in migration applications in 5 years. Dublin has witnessed several severe disturbances with incidents of violence involving public transportation, street confrontations, and residential disturbances. Civilian patrols have emerged in the capital while police force employ riot control measures against protesters. The CSO reports that 150,000 individuals relocated to Ireland in 2023-2024, marking the highest influx in 17 years. Of these, nearly 30,000 were returning Irish nationals. The majority have settled in Dublin's disadvantaged areas and small provincial localities. The country currently accommodates nearly 33,000 international protection applicants, increasing from 7,000 in 2017. Includes African and Middle Eastern arrivals, along with 100,000 Ukrainian refugees. Each application costs approximately €70 a day, representing a 1/3 increase over 2 years. So the fact is that you have anti-immigration demonstrations causing unrest in Dublin. This was last year. Of course, we aren't talking about it now, but I'm sure it hasn't gone away. And sometimes the worst person you know may be the best person for the job. And that is Conor McGregor. That could be Conor McGregor. Now, of course, tabloids and the news and everybody across the state-sponsored news in Ireland, Conor McGregor has no chance to be the president. Now, it is a different system in these places. It's a different parliamentary system than here in the U.S. Each country is different. As for an example, take our neighbors to the north. If you wanted to run as a conservative in Canada, you first have to be accepted by the Conservative Party. They have to approve your application. Unlike here, you can run for a primary, you can write yourself in. You don't have to get the stamp of approval. Now, if you want to seriously contend, you're going to want to get the support of one of the two major parties at a major level, but it's not required. And we see these kinds of gateways preventing people from getting into politics across the EU. And of course, the English parliamentary system's all kinds of nuts. So is there a huge possibility that Conor McGregor could win and become the president of Ireland? I don't know. I'm not on the ground there. I don't have much of an idea of how their system would work in that regard. You could ask me, would it be good if somebody like Conor McGregor got in? I'd have to throw that up at about a 50-50. If he's talking about keeping Ireland for the Irish, I don't see why. If he just runs on that one platform, then I think he might be the best man for the job in that regard. Doesn't mean I have to like who the person is. If he has the best interests of his country at heart and he wants to run, and I don't think he should be held back from doing so. So it is interesting to see that. Somebody's asking about the grape allegations. Let's see if they actually have something like that. Now, of course, you have the typical Irish leaders. He doesn't represent the views of Ireland. All right, whatever. So let's see. McGregor has held no role in office before. Nope. They're just going to mention it, but they're not going to actually talk about it. It's a civil court case, so it's not a criminal court case. So one could liken that to how President Trump was found guilty of graping that old lady in New York, right? How a civil court found that. So it is interesting that it was not a criminal trial. So there is that to take into consider. So yes, that's what we're seeing there. So Nikita Hand, also known as Nikita Nilamin, won her claim against him, accusing the professional fighter of graping in a Dublin hotel in 2018. She was awarded damages and costs after a 3-week trial in which they found him guilty civil liability for assault. So, it is what it is in that regard. I don't know. I have not researched the case. Of course, if it is like a civil trial here in the U.S., it's different. I'm just giving you an example of what I know. Here in the U.S., it's got to be beyond a reasonable doubt to be guilty. In a civil case, it's based on the preponderance of the evidence. So it is not as thorough, for lack of a better term, than anything else. But this is going to be interesting. Now, we also have to entertain one more thing before we go on to the next topic, and that is this. Is this for real, or is this a publicity stunt? A lot of people claim to run for president, and then about a month or two later, they drop out for one reason or another. So it is what it is. All right, folks, this is Rickcast. I am the aforementioned Rick. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell in order to help this show grow. Burden of proof is it's not the same as a criminal trial. So it's absolutely different when somebody says, "Oh, well, he was found guilty in civil court." Okay, I mean, obviously there was a jury of his peers and blah 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 blah. Or I don't know if they even have a jury system in Ireland. It could be just a judge or a tribunal system. So that is what that is in that regard. Let's move on to our next story of the night. We talked about it yesterday, but looks like he finally did it. Trump signs order aimed at dismantling U.S. Department of Education. So let's just watch the clip.
Are you superstitious? Ron, are you superstitious? Let's use that same pen.
Let's go back.
I'll take this one out. I had one. I was very lucky. I signed another document that turned out to be very good for the country, and I said, let's use that same pen. I don't know. Is anybody superstitious? Ron, are you superstitious? Let's use that same pen.
So that's him signing the order to dismantle, quote unquote, the Department of Education. So no matter what you thought, whether you thought it was a good idea, whether you thought it was a bad idea, well, it's done. It's officially done. Now, if you have student loans, don't get too excited. You're still going to be held to that standard. You're still going to have to pay your student loans, despite Joe Biden's best effort. But you're, I mean, they always do these things where they have like students or like any friendly one for gender equality. Well, not gender equality, for not having men compete in women's sports. He was surrounded by women. These things are photo ops. And so, yeah, he's there. He is. Everybody's happy. Oh, yay!
Big factor here. Good luck. Good luck, man.
All right. Well, hunt the pop and circumstance there. Nope, wrong story. We're going to get to that in a minute. So, flanked by students and educators, President Donald Trump on Thursday signed an executive order intended to essentially dismantle the Federal Department of Education, making good on a long-standing campaign promise to conservatives. And the order would leave school policy almost entirely in the hands of the states and of local boards, a prospect that alarms liberal education advocates. And of course, it started right here with Chuck Schumer. Attempting to dismantle the Department of Education is one of the most destructive and devastating steps Donald Trump has ever taken. Supposedly, this will hurt kids. And I know there's a lot to be said of the programs and so forth, but the statistics don't really lie. I mean, the United States spends about 5.4% of its GDP on education, which is $15,000 per student. And that is higher, about 38% higher than the world average. I guess you could call it about 11,300 per student. The post-secondary level, we spend about $37,000 per student, which is double the average at 18. Even with all that, the U.S. ranked, this is with the Department of Ed since 1970. So anybody who wants to say anything bad about, well, why would you shut this down, blah, blah, blah. Since 1970, with the Department of Education being created and going forward, the U.S. has ranked 28th in math, 12th in science, and 20th in reading in 2022. And those numbers are only going to get worse because of the COVID lockdowns. Those things absolutely were destructive to generations of students. Now, when you get into other ideas, mathematic performance in 2022, we already said that, 28th, 12th out of 37th. The U.S. topped the 2024 U.S. News and World Rankings report for best countries in educational ranking. Yet its student performance on standardized tests consistently place it in the middle or lower tiers of developing nations. So for the amount of money that these United States spends on the students and on the types of performances, we don't get the results we need. And that's with a top-down educational system. And I was in it for 10 years. I was there. This time of year, I'll tell you exactly what I used to do. It's March. I'd be in the middle. I would shut down my actual, we'd have the curriculum, and we get to the curriculum. Usually we get to a little after the Civil War, before Christmas. We come back in January. We talk about a little bit more post Civil War. And then the beginning of February, about middle of February, they take spring break. We come back. And we were told, shut it down and start standardized testing. What does that mean? It means Rick Barrett found websites that had mock STAR tests, which here in Texas, we call it the STAR test. And Rick Barrett would print out mock social studies STAR tests, and I would give them to the students for the next 60 days. Every single class was me giving them 4 pages of a standardized test. And then I would time them for an hour. then we'd go over, hey, this is, look how you look at this question, look how this answer's phrased, this is how you answer it, anticipation. And the only reason, and we did this in social studies, science, English, math, all four core curriculums, drill. We would drill for 2 months because the STAR tests are usually in April. So say whatever you want. And most teachers won't tell you that. They'll say, oh, I care for my students. It's always them. I care for my students and I do this for my students and I do that for. Do you really? Or do you just do whatever you can to continue? Steph's not going to like. Steph asked, why do we lag? Unions. Teachers unions. We lag because of teachers unions. We also lag. It's actually 2. I'm going to split the baby on this one again, Steph. You always make me split the baby on these and I don't mind. Good evening, Michael Mendez. How are you, sir? Great to see you. Hopefully I said your last name correctly. First one is unions. Second one is No Child Left Behind. Atrocious bill by George W. Bush. Should not have ever, hopefully, and that goes away now. Hey, then glad to see you, Michael. And so the whole point is that everybody messes up the idea of education when it's top down. Unions are terrible. No Child Left Behind is terrible. You don't want me to use the term split the baby? It's a biblical term. I'm just using okay, I'll use a different one. I'll split the pizza. How about that? See, I work for you guys. Steph tells me not to do something and I don't do it because I work for you. But the fact of the matter is it's more than just unions and No Child Left Behind. We have we lag behind India, we lag behind Japan, because those places have family structures in place. None of the other developed countries in the West have a single child or single family model like the U.S. has. The U.S. is overloaded with single parent households. And that's absolutely the problem. You can do whatever you want in education, but if the family structure at home is crap, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Yeah, right. No, I'm not scared of Steph. I want to make sure she sticks around because she's my token liberal. And it looks good on my stats. So the fact of the matter is that without a strong family structure, schools are useless. And I know people don't want to hear about that because the fact is we want to think we can throw money at the problem. Well, we can't throw money at the problem because we've thrown $15,000 per student on average, and the numbers don't work because moms are working 2 jobs to try and trying to provide, and the students by themselves, and then they can't get help, and then they can't get resources. And like I said yesterday, a lot of Title I schools, the only time these kids eat are at the school for breakfast and lunch. So it's really not that's the problem. It's family. It's the family structure. Society can never overcome a family structure that is in disarray. So that's the solution. Unfortunately, it'll never happen that way, but it is what it is in that regard. So yes, Trump has shut down the Department of Education. Going back to the states is probably a good idea because the Department of Education is just a waste of money. It hasn't done anything productive. All right, this is Rickcast. Thank you for hanging out with me. Let's move on to our next story here. We saw it a little bit earlier in the night. Jackie Robinson was removed his webpage was removed from the Department of Defense. And the fact is, the U.S. Department of Defense, Axios, Defense Department restores Jackie Robinson's webpage after outcry. The U.S. Department of Defense removed and restored a webpage featuring baseball and civil rights pioneer Jackie Robinson, who served in the Army during World War II and segregation. I mean, you could have just stopped after World War II. The initial removal of Johnson's Army history comes after a massive purge of articles about soldiers of color following President Trump's executive order ending federal diversity, equality, and inclusion initiatives. So the removal of the article on Robinson discussing his service during World War II before he broke the modern day major league color barrier for the Brooklyn Dodgers. And so the way it was of course framed by your leftist media as, oh, Trump doesn't care about Jack. Well, you know what? I'll let you listen to Mina Kimes and you can see the entire narrative that was formed by the left. Now, this is on a sports show, by the way.
ESPN and others reported today that the Department of Defense, amidst an ongoing effort to purge government mentions of diversity, equity, inclusion, removed a website honoring Jackie Robinson's military service. It has since been restored, and their spokesperson, the Pentagon press secretary, said this: we do not view or highlight people such as Robinson through the prism of immutable characteristics such as race, amongst other things. So, look, Jackie Robinson was known for many things, but above all, first and foremost, it was his ongoing courage in the face of racial discrimination. In fact, in addition to crossing the color barrier in baseball, he served in a segregated unit in the Army and in one instance refused to move to the back of the bus, was arrested and acquitted. That matters. That history cannot be erased, it cannot be undone, and it must be recognized to fully understand and celebrate his legacy.
Thanks, Mina.
So some of the guys who are hanging out with me right now, you may know this set. This is Around the Horn. This used to be one of the best shows you watched in the afternoon. It was an amazing show. You had this show Around the Horn where you would have 4 sports reporters talk about, and wait for it, sports. And they would go after it. And then it wasn't just dudes. You had the famously amazing Jackie McMullen from the Boston Globe. Or the Boston Herald. She was on there all the time, and she would get into it with the guys because she knew her stuff. This girl right here, Mina Kimes, this, ladies and gentlemen, is the face of DEI. Okay, she's some 32-year-old girl who's never played, she didn't even play sports, but that's not a big deal either, because you've had, Hannah Storm and Doris Burke and a history of really good sports female reporters out there. Mina Kimes isn't one of them. Mina Kimes is a social justice warrior who ESPN pays to fill out their DEI quota, because remember, ESPN is owned by the Disney Corporation. And so she highlighting this, she faced a backlash from people. One came out of nowhere. If you know anything about college football, you'll know. Get out of here. We're done with you, Trump. You'll know this guy, Robert Griffin III. Sports shows should be about sports, not politics. He tweeted this today, which is very interesting because he used to be just as radical as everybody else.
Since been.
And so Mina Kimes is ESPN was bought by Disney, I think back in like the early 2000s. Disney owns ESPN, ABC, Disney, Fox, and Marvel, and National Geographic. They're a huge multinational conglomerate. And so Mina Kimes here was hired to push diversity. She's on the NFL Network shows. She doesn't know anything about sports. Like I said, that's not a female trait because Hannah Storm and Doris Burke and Jackie McMullen and tons of other ones. I actually tried. There was many more than I actually remembered out there. Phyllis George, Leslie Visser, Gail Gardner, Mary Carrillo, Gail Sirens. I mean, there's tons of Robin Roberts back before she was actually a pretty decent sports journalist. So it's not just, oh, well, it's a men's only. No. Men were the majority who covered them. But yes, women, there were very good female reporters. And the reason when you saw Jackie McMullen on Around the Horn, you weren't like, oh, she's there because she's a female. You're like, oh, Jackie McMullen's she's on the sports reporters today because she knows what she's talking about. And she would absolutely go head to head with Tim Ryan and all these other guys that were on there. But she's not. she's not. And she wants to cause division. She's always talking about diversity. She's always talking about equity and inclusion. And she kind of actually she links into our next story talking about crazy college women and how they've been absolutely just destroyed by college. And so this whole thing, we're highlighting his military service because he didn't do that. And that history matters. And it matters. Jackie Robinson, if you go to a Major League Baseball stadium, and I think even the minor league ballparks that are associated with the major league parks, like their AAA teams and so forth, they all have 42 retired. Why do they have 42 retired? For Jackie Robinson. His work in baseball, breaking the color barrier, is more important than whatever happened during his military career. And the Pentagon saying, listen, Jackie Robinson served, but through the DEI initiatives, it's not because Jackie Robinson served because he loved these United States. No, it's Jackie Robinson served, black, black, black. And DEI, and I listened to Jason Whitlock talk about this morning, DEI is only focused on keeping us in the past and having us to constantly apologize for the past and having to say, oh, well, it was, it was bad what happened to Jackie Robinson. We should never advance forward in life or move on. And the fact that we honor Jackie Robinson in every Major League Baseball park, and he is woven into the fabric of Major League Baseball. No, forget about all that. And let's focus on this one thing here. It is an absolute just unnecessary thing. And that's why the show is being canceled. That's why ESPN's ratings are in the dump. And that's why people don't want DEI. People don't want it. Simply because they don't want to have to be reminded of stuff that's done. Okay, segregation happened. It was there. There are many stories from black soldiers and white soldiers. And so and all of these other things, these United States are the West in general, like all the other, Western countries. This is what progressivism does. It holds them in another state of arrested development. You can't move on beyond this. We can't talk about the fact that right now these United States is pretty daggone good at giving opportunities to everybody, depending on how hard you want to work and what you want to do. We just have to constantly apologize for past mistakes, and nobody should ever have to live with apologizing for past mistakes. And it's the same thing that goes into why should these United States have to apologize constantly for it? And that's what Pete Hegseth was saying when he said DEI is dead. Not because he was like, DEI is dead, let's get rid of Jackie Robinson stuff. Ha 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 ha. No, DEI is dead because we shouldn't have to apologize for things that we've already made up. Slavery is outlawed. There's no more segregation. All these things are pretty much, they're past. They're gone. Whatever you think about them in that regard. So that was an interesting topic that came up today. And this is just the face of why ESPN is failing. This woman is not a sports commentator. She's a DEI commentator. She knows how to read statistics. And of course and the reason why women like this are allowed to continue, and Mina Kimes, is holding back opportunities for talented female broadcasters because she sits in a position that she didn't earn. And a female broadcaster that's good at her job can't get that opportunity because she's got to be there. And the last thing is, there's so many thirsty men. It's the same thing in the conservative sphere. If you've been online at all, there's this new girl, Sarah, whatever her name is, the latest blonde-haired, blue-eyed female that seems to be manufactured by TPUSA and these other organizations. She's out there reading boilerplate things. And you know why she's now famous? Thirsty young men who she's so hot, guys. I can't believe it. Can you all just control your lower faculties for 5 seconds? And that's kind of the same thing with her. All right. This is Rickcast. I am Rick. Like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell to help this show grow, ladies and gentlemen. I have good news. Our Twitch user has, he is here. So we salute you, Twitch user. Our one bastion in the abyss that is Twitch. You are there, and we appreciate it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to our next story, rapid firing. And if you like me a lot, you'll catch me immediately after this show on with Stephen Cunningham on News from the Pew, because it's a double dipper night for me. All right, ladies and gentlemen, next story of the night from townhall.com. Here's the graph showing white college-educated women have gone totally insane, but we knew this already. And if you wanted a little bit, well, here you go. We don't need Robert Griffin anymore. And if you wanted to know this, we could have NBC tell you why.
White women with at least a college degree, the only group of white voters.
So if you're, just passing along, the screen says NBC poll opinion of Trump. White men, no degree, plus 41. White men with college, plus 1. White women without a degree, I think, is plus 14. And then he'll tell you the other one.
Voters that really kind of is on the left politically.
So it says white women with a college degree is negative 38% for Trump.
Aligned with progressive causes, democratic politics. Give you an example here. It's that DEI question, right here that we asked about in our poll. We had 2 big statements we read to voters. Basically, do you want to continue DEI programs or do you think they should be ended? And again, look at this divide here. White men, no degree, end it. White men with a degree, end it, they say. White women, no degree, end it, they say, by double digits. And then white women with a college degree, completely different by a nearly 40-point margin, they say, to continue DEI.
Thank you. Muted myself. Oh, well. So this is the end result of women in college. And I've made this point before, and people don't like it, but that's why you watch this show. We live in a matriarchal culture. And people kind of look at me with their, they do the dog head tilt. What do you mean? Well, look at our culture. Look at how our culture is. Now, the first reason we live in a matriarchal culture is because women continue to say we live in a patriarchal culture. But when you look at every area of society, it has been moved to a female-dominated perspective. Look at the job market. Does the job market favor men or women? Most jobs, most high-paying white-collar jobs involve sitting in cubicles, running paperwork, and being organized. This tends to favor women. Where are the manufacturing jobs? Where are the textile jobs? Where are any of those jobs? They've been moved overseas. So we have a matriarchal culture. And they try to say it's so hard as a woman to work. It's like, well, first of all, you get priority in hiring. The job market is tailored to you, at least the high collar, well-paying jobs. And then, of course, you have things like waitressing and bartending and things like that. Women statistically do better as waitresses and bartenders than men. That's why when I was a bartender, they always wanted to get the female bartender because guys, crazy enough, tip the female bartender better than me. I have this face. You think they would tip me better, but they don't. And so it's one of these things that society, as it is currently standing, favors females. And it's not me complaining. This is just an observation. Most of the tech sector jobs, will guys dominate them? Yeah, but, the fact of the matter is women have equal opportunity in them. What do I mean? Women do not have equal opportunity in logging. Women do not have equal opportunity in heavy manufacturing jobs. What about World War II? That's what we call the exception and not the rule. But the fact of the matter is, this matriarchal society it's the upending of the family dynamic. OnlyFans, jobs like this. My show, I probably have 2,000 watchers on on X, 150 to 250 on Rumble, and probably, 200 to 400 on YouTube if I was a female. And that's just statistically the way it works. It's not me complaining. People tend to like looking at females, men and women, than men. That's just nature. It's just nature. It's not anything you can fight with. And then once again, please look at this as an observation and not a critique. There's a girl on X, and she became famous overnight because she shows off holsters in provocative places. No talent, no skill, but she's there. She's got 40,000 followers. She went from 10 to 40,000 because men simp for these things and men promote these things. And it's very easy to do because we don't have the court system. The court system is famous. If we had a patriarchal court system, there would be no divorce, because if the woman wanted to leave, they would say, okay, child stays with the man. But the court system now favors women. Now, of course, there's precedent and reasons why, but the fact of the matter is, these statistics bear that out. And so here it is again, right? Donald Trump, white men with no degree, plus 41. Women with a college degree, negative 38. JD Vance, negative 38. Elon Musk, minus 40. I would have loved to seen a poll about Elon Musk this time last year. It probably would have been 0, maybe negative 5, negative 10, but not negative 40. Doge, negative 38. The Republican Party, negative 35. Yet they're the biggest supporters of Vladimir Zelensky. And they are the biggest proponent of DEI. And so Steve Kornak wrote, it represents a layering of the educational gap, which has exploded during the Trump era. On top of more established gender gaps, these are combined. The gap chasm emerges. On one end are white men without 4-year college degrees. This is generally blue-collar demographic that is now deeply aligned with Trump, as opposed to progressive politics. On the other end are white women with 4-year degrees. This is more affluent demographic that has been racing leftward, particularly on cultural issues, which is squarely opposed to Trump. Both groups pack a formidable punch. 18% of all voters last year were non-college white men, and 17% were college-educated white women. And they have come to exist at polar opposite political cultural universes. The white men without college degrees, I think we could all say, represent the patriarchal mindset, the traditional values. Now, of course, men with college degrees can have that, and I'm not saying they don't, but most of the men who recognize the patriarchal worldview are more blue collar. The longer you're in the college system, especially at such a young age, I'm talking like you're an 18-year-old male and an 18-year-old female in college being left on your own to these Marxist blue-haired professors, and you want to pass your classes, so you learn to conform. And that's pretty much what they teach you. They teach you to conform to whatever narrative is being pushed out. Hence why Elon Musk is 0, now negative 40. Doge, which they never heard of, now it's negative 35. But Volodymyr Zelensky, because the left tells you Volodymyr Zelensky is a positive force, plus 35. And social media has been a devastating development for Western civilization, in particular women. And I've talked about this before on my TikTok to corn pipeline. The fact of the matter is, women can get social media does two things. It goes after two vices. It goes after women's vanity and men's lust. It goes after women's vanity because a woman can take a picture of herself, upload it, and get compliments from hundreds of thousands of men from around the world. And of course, it stimulates men's lust, obviously. And so since women have this ability to get compliments and to get promoted and to be put on a pedestal without doing much work, it has led them away from the patriarchal structure. Now, of course, people talk about college as well, because college has enabled women to break out of the typical family structure, the two-parent household with the man at the head of the family and the woman working in the house, if you will, and how that dynamic has been completely destroyed. And I always give this example. Let's say you're a 16-year-old girl in high school, and for fun, you start dancing on Instagram to the popular song, to the hip songs, right? You do that. You get a lot of attention. I just danced for a minute, and now I got 10,000 likes and 100,000 shares and all these things. And that's kind of, your endorphins are running, but nothing serious about that. And then you turn 18 and somebody at college says, dude, you have a 200,000 followers on Instagram. Look at all these likes and stuff you get on there. You can, if you get on OnlyFans, you can make a pretty good amount of money on there. And the girl at first is probably like, nah, I don't do that kind of stuff. That's, that's degrading. And then they start seeing the money. Now, of course, this is not the average OnlyFans girl only makes like $100 a month. It's actually a Ponzi scheme. But the image, the idea is, I'll just go on OnlyFans and I can make, or I can go on Twitch. What's up, Twitch? I can be a Twitch streamer, or I can go on YouTube, or I can become a political commentator, and I don't have to work anymore. I mean, I don't have to worry about finding a husband who's going to take care of me, all these other things. I'm going to have my career. I'm going to take care of myself. And that's fine. Whatever. Do whatever you want to do in that regard. But understand, if you're an 18-year-old girl and you've decided to go down one of these paths, you're making 6 figures a year, right? Low 6 figures. You're an 18-year-old guy and you find that girl in college cute, you have no shot. You have no shot with her. She's making 6 figures and you're making $7.50 an hour bar backing at the local college dive bar while you're trying to put yourself through school for a degree that you're probably going to get pushed to the bottom of the ladder on. And so the hookups that you would make in college that would potentially lead to marriage and kids and all these other things are gone, destroyed in this environment with social media and college and all. Or if they don't go down the TikTok to corn pipeline, they have the other option, which is, fool around in college, live your best days in your 20s. Don't worry about it. The world is your oyster. Let's look at sad fact number 2. And I might really get some of y'all peed off tonight, but I'm on a roll and I got to go meet Steve in 10 minutes anyway. I still got one more story. The world, and we talked about this with the homeless girl a couple days ago. The world values young women. Young women are, they're beautiful, they're youthful, and the world loves them. And the problem is, like everything else, it doesn't last forever. Now, I'm not saying you're going to hit the wall and be ugly like all these other guys, but you don't look the same. I do not look the same at 43 as I did at 23. It's just natural. Now, guys, it's okay because we get gray hair and we kind of stay a little bit there and a little bit here. But for women, because society values you at such a young age and they give you the world, they don't understand it doesn't last forever. And so what happens is they use up their youth and their beauty, and then they get older and the world spits them out. And now they're 31, 32, maybe 33, with not the same amount of prospects that they had before, engaging in things that they probably shouldn't have been doing. Now their chance of having kids has gone down, and husbands have already been found or they're gone. It's just a terrible thing. And a lot of people are just focusing on the college aspect, but the college aspect is within the larger bubble of the matriarchal society that promotes women to do stupid things because don't worry about the consequences. You're going to be young and hot forever. And all of us, when we were younger, even men think about this too. All of us, when we are younger, we don't think the party's ever going to end, right? There's that famous song. I forgot the guy. He's a Texas A&M legend. The road goes on forever and the party never ends. We all think that. Then you wake up one day and you're 40 and you're like, what the hell just happened? But society, where's this on? Live fast, die young, do all these other kind of things. Even Billy Joel did it back in the 80s. So it's a lot of people are only seeing the college thing. And I'm trying to tell them the college thing is representative of a larger problem. Maybe they'll listen to me someday. Yeah, I probably won't. All right, this is Rick Cast. One last story of the day, and then I got to move on to news from the Pew with Mr. Stephen Cunningham. Here we go. One last story. Blake Lively's seeking to end Justin Baldoni's vengeful $400 million defamation lawsuit. Actress Blake Lively asked a U.S. judge on Thursday to dismiss actor Justin Baldoni's $400 million defamation lawsuit, calling it vengeful, an attempt to weaponize federal courts after she accused him of sexual harassment, which is funny. She came out, she led the offensive, she accused him of all these things. Now she's running with her tail between her legs saying, oh, don't do that, don't stop, please. In a filing in a Manhattan federal court, lawyers for Lively called Baldoni's lawsuit part of a quote-unquote sinister campaign to bury and destroy Lively for speaking out about sexual harassment and retaliation, including through her lawsuit against him. Let's see. The law prohibits weaponized defamation lawsuits, such as Baldoni's, to deprive Lively of her right to speak out. Lively is also seeking unspecified triple and punitive damage for her reputational and emotional harm that Baldoni and his production companies and other defendants have allegedly caused. It's actually pretty hysterical because she came out the gate. She threw all these things at him. She thought she was going to make her name. She was going to be the champion of women's rights doing this. Then Baldoni came back and just published everything they had. Everything, all the text messages, all the emails, everything. Nothing selectively clipped. He's just like, here, have it all. And now she's like, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that to me. And everybody's going, okay, so if this is the last thing you have, it's not looking great for her. Yeah, I don't think the Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively marriage is going to last, because Disney's even starting to get a little nervous here because they're seeing Amber Heard 2.0, the Amber Heard Johnny what the hell is Johnny Depp's, I just had a Alzheimer moment, Johnny Depp trial on the horizon. And that's the last thing they want to go through, especially with one of their few properties that do well. That's Deadpool. And they don't want Ryan Reynolds getting dragged in the mud for all of this. So they're really just trying to get this thing buried at this point. Let's see here. So in seeking the dismissal, Lively's lawyers said applicable California law barred lawsuits such as Baldoni's based on public discussion of sexual harassment. The alleged falsehoods, quote, center on hair splitting, Mrs. Lively's recount of specific incidences. Now they just kind of drop into lawyer speak. And what Lively and her team are doing is they're trying to avoid that. They're trying to avoid this March 2026 trial because she is going to lose. She is absolutely going to lose, and it's going to be embarrassing for her. So they are starting to do all kinds of things to try and get this thing dismissed, to try and get this thing moved on, to just get it out of the way, because this is the example of stepping in it. Blake Lively stepped in it pretty hard, and it's not looking great for her. And so it's pretty interesting to see how this is working out as far as this, what would we call it? blind or tone deaf. That's probably the best word. A tone deaf lawsuit that was filed after a pretty successful film. The movie that they're promoting here made $350 million on like a $75 million budget. It was a success. So everybody's kind of scratching their heads like, why did you even do this? Why did you even promote this? Why did you even go after this? Because it just seems to be one mistake after another mistake after another mistake. Now they're filing lawsuits to try and clean this up. And you got Ryan Reynolds filing a lawsuit saying, hey, can you just dismiss me out of this whole thing just because I hurt his feelings? And it's messy. And that's what happens when you try to smear somebody. Because by most accounts, Baldoni is in the clear here. He's in the clear. It's just that Blake Lively decided that she was gonna make him the subject of her rise to stardom and no longer be Miss Ryan Reynolds. All right, folks, that's it for this episode of Rickcast. Thank you for hanging out with me. Please do me a favor, like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell to help this show grow. I'm glad to have spent this time with you on this Thursday evening. And if you really like what I do, you can jump on over to Census Fidelium, or if you're on YouTube, jump over to News from the Pew. If you type that in the search bar, if you're on Rumble, it's under the Census Fidelium channel. And I will be on there with Stephen Cunningham in a couple minutes, and we're going to talk about more stuff as well, because talking is fun. All right, folks, that's it for this episode of Rickcast. I am Rick. I will talk to you all tomorrow. God bless, and until that day comes, free Dexter Taylor.